hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Earth's Mightiest Comics. This is the show where every episode we talk about some new comics from the past couple of weeks, and we let you know what we thought about them, whether or not we enjoyed them, as always, and if we recommend them to all of you folks at home. This week, I would say, breaks the first week of the month curse that we talk about every so often. It's kind of stacked. There's a lot of good stuff here this week. There's a lot of big stuff this week. Most of it was all stuff that I was at least interested to read. So, yeah, it also helps that we are, by the way, not recording this at 9 in the morning like we did for the past couple episodes. We are back to recording this at 7 p.m. I realized when I was editing some of the previous episode, I just forgot to bring up points that I wanted to mention because I was so tired. So hopefully that will not happen this time. But we are back in our normal recording spot, and yeah, we're gonna talk about some comics here. So yeah, as mentioned, fairly stacked week. We have stuff like the ending of Absolute Power, that big DC summer event that has been engulfing the entire universe the past couple of months. Got new issues of stuff like Batman, Daredevil, a new series from Ghost Machine, the imprint Hyde Street. We got a new Storm series, new issue of Immortal Thor, but we're gonna start off with what I would consider to be the biggest release of the week, which is DC All-In Special #1. It's a one-shot, written by Joshua Williamson and Scott Snyder. We got two stories. One is just solo written by Josh Williamson. The other is co-written by both Joshua Williamson and Scott Snyder. Then we have artists Dan Mora. Hold on. What did Dan Mora do in art on this? Apparently Dan Mora did some art for this. Okay. But also the main ones are Daniel Sampere and Wes Craig. Daniel Sampere for the first one, Wes Craig for the second one. Now, this is a flip book, so I'm actually curious how this read digitally for you, Sebastian, because the way this works is that it's two issues in one. The first half is one story, it's one issue, and then you flip it over to the back and you start reading the back cover to the front, and that is the second issue. I'm assuming you figured that out, right? Or did you just read it the second one backwards?
So it basically put it the correct way. So I literally read it straight through. For me, it looked like it was the first story, and then the second part looked like almost like a backup story almost. Okay. I was like just usually at the end. Yeah. So I read it kind of fun. I didn't realize that's how it worked for you though. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the kind of format of this book. This book takes place right after the end of Absolute Power, which we will talk about in more depth a little bit later in the show. But this one we talked about this a little bit a while back, actually. I don't remember what episode or how much we talked about it. But essentially, this is the start of a brand new initiative for DC. It's not a relaunch. It's not a reboot. It's all in the same continuity. A lot of the same books are still continuing, some with new writers, new creative teams, but some just are continuing on with the same creative team. But it's essentially meant to provide a comprehensive kind of fresh start for people to, have all these new jumping on points for all of these books, while also for some of them, kind of continuing the stories that have already been building in some of those books, right? And that's going to be the case more so with some than others. Like, for instance, stuff like Titans, stuff like Nightwing, those are going to be better jumping on points than stuff like Superman or Green Lantern. Superman and Green Lantern continuing the same creative team and the same story, but just with a new kind of arc that is starting up. Whereas Titans and Nightwing and a lot of other books are just starting with new creative teams entirely. So that's kind of what this DC All-In thing is. It's a kickstart to this new initiative and jumping on point for a whole bunch of other, people for a whole bunch of people to just like jump on and start reading these books here. And while also building up and creating and solidifying the Absolute Universe, which is going to be kind of coming up in upcoming weeks. In fact, the first book in that Absolute Universe line is actually starting next week. It's Absolute Batman. So yeah, that's kind of, again, the general broad strokes of what this is. As far as the plot goes, it's more or less the same story, but told through two perspectives, and kind of all revolving around Darkseid. So the first part of it, or at least the part that I read first, I think you can kind of read them in any order, but the part that I read first is the main universe, Justice League side of it, where we have basically after the events of Absolute Power, a lot of the heroes are like, hey, there needs to be a better system of us in place so that what Waller did is not able to happen again. And so they make a new Justice League Watchtower, and they basically say, hey, anybody who wants to, provided they're superheroes,
can just join the Justice League. And they kind of give out a whole bunch of member cards. A lot of this part of the story is focused around Booster Gold.
Yes.
Who has kind of seen this specific Justice League member card, a blank version of it, in his future. And so he's been aware of this, and this is kind of a big defining moment for him, and it gives him kind of a purpose to stay there, because he's been kind of feeling lost and purposeless for a lot of, his past couple of, however long he's been in the DC universe, or the main, current timeline DC universe. So they kind of have this whole big ceremony at the new Watchtower, and while they are there, Darkseid just busts in and starts attacking them all. And he's been bonded somehow with the Spectre, Jim Corrigan, and he's kind of saying all these like vague phrases and stuff at the Justice League. It's kind of unclear if he's talking to them or if he's talking to somebody else, because it kind of seems like he's doing both. We now learn in the other side of this issue that he is talking to somebody else. But so he's still he's in this moment, he's fighting the Justice League while also clearly he's kind of seemingly like in between two universes or two timelines, kind of phased between both and is kind of coexisting in both. So he fights all the Justice League. Eventually, he just kind of spontaneously dies, and the Spectre is no longer bonded to him. And so that's when they kind of discover the existence of the Absolute Universe, which is another universe that they have kind of been aware of, but it was not complete, and it was kind of sealed away. Now it's like the world is just there. The universe is there. So They send Booster Gold, or more accurately, Booster Gold volunteers to go over to that universe, because for some reason it's a universe that's only accessible to time travelers and nobody else can get there. So Booster Gold goes over to that universe, and it's a world that is just like ruled by Darkseid, and he gets attacked by this like legion of Darkseid's followers, and that's the end of the first, or one of the halves of this story. The other side of it is the Darkseid story. Darkseid himself, when the multiverse was closed off, which is at the end of Absolute Power, the multiverse is closed off. And so Darkseid felt this like surge in power and is trying to find out like what or why that is. And so he's building this machine to kind of be able to bond with the Spectre, ends up killing one of his kids in order to, fulfill that. And then he goes on this like crusade and quest to kind of try and find the Spectre. Runs into a whole bunch of other people, kind of takes them all out, eventually does find the Spectre, has this fight with the Spectre, and that's where we see the dialogue from the first half kind of come back into play. We can see kind of flashes of the Justice League kind of around him, but it's clear that, like, for him, they're not really there. Like, they are, but he's not really focusing on them. And so he fights with the Spectre, he kind of eventually does bond with him, and then finds out that Darkseid is this, like, universal force that is kind of equivalent to a lot of these other celestial beings. And there's no multiverse equivalent of him. He is the only Darkseid. And so, as a result, because his power is like this present multiversal force, it's kind of been slowly dissipating and being split between all the different universes as the multiverse has expanded. And so his power has kind of been decreasing over time. But when the multiverse gets shut off, all of a sudden, it just all goes back into him. And so that was what that kind of initial surge was. But he didn't seemingly get all of it, and so that's why he ends up dying. It seems like he kind of just wills himself into death and then rebirths himself as the kind of sole Darkseid, and he's in this universe, and it also somehow in the process of that spins off, creates the Absolute Universe, which seems to be where he is kind of residing. And the Absolute Universe is essentially, basically, it's a universe where the heroes are all there, but they have not had some of the advantages that the Earth 2, main DC heroes have had. So, like, Wonder Woman doesn't have Themyscira, it seems. Bruce presumably has none of his wealth or, resources. Yeah. Clark, it's not exactly clear what the case is going to be. My guess is that he won't have Pa and Ma Kent. I'm assuming he won't have just fallen in with them and would have had to kind of make his own way up. But so anyway, that's the Absolute Universe. And so we see, from the Absolute Universe's perspective, when Booster ends up getting sent over there, and then it kind of collides and comes back right at the end to converge with the other story. So that is what this is. And I think it's interesting. I think the most interesting thing about this is the structure, the dueling structure of, Darkseid being in these two places at once and kind of trying to piece together what's happening and why he's there and what's going on. That stuff is cool. I think that stuff is kind of the most interesting thing about this. It does, of course, also set up a new status quo in the main DC universe. The Justice League, they're back. They have their headquarters back, the Watchtower. They have a much bigger roster now. Like, there's a lot of big kind of status quo shifts that then push this chapter of the DC universe into this, again, new status quo, but also still feeling familiar. And I think it does balance the familiarity and the new very well, because we have the Absolute Universe, which is the new stuff, and then the Earth 2 stuff, which is kind of very familiar in a lot of ways. But also in both of them, we immediately, because of this whole Darkseid thing, have this big sense of urgency and this mystery and this kind of sense of purpose to try and figure out what's happening. And so immediately that does make me very interested to see where this will go, because this is kind of it concludes officially. I mean, it's more like Absolute Power 4 concludes this, but this kind of week of comics concludes the whole Dawn of DC initiative that's been going on for the past year and a half or so, which I think was overall incredibly solid. But I did feel towards the middle part / end, I did feel a sense of, okay, all this stuff is good and it's solid, but I don't really feel compelled to keep reading it in a lot of instances. I did anyway, because it was very solid, but this does provide a sense of urgency and a sense of uniqueness and a sense of freshness that does make me very interested to see where this is going to go, where this plot will go, where both of these universes will go. I'm assuming they're going to start pretty separate, but it does seem like they will be linked pretty intrinsically eventually, and that's all interesting. So I'm curious to see kind of where DC will kind of take this. I think DC has been very, very good the past couple of years of weaving just this overall story of the DC universe, where these events all kind of flow into each other very naturally. And like, you have the individual stories, sure, and they all have their own storylines going, but the overall tapestry of the DC universe that is being woven has felt very purposeful. And I think this is continuing that. And I think, all of these individual stories, a lot of them are also still working while doing their own thing. They're still working in service to that larger tapestry of the narrative of the DC universe. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. I think it's a very solid first step in that kind of new relaunch or initiative. And I'm very curious to see how this kind of develops in the coming months and years.
No, yeah, I mean, this was interesting for me, yeah, because I read Absolute Power before reading this one, so it which is nice because it didn't spoil the ending for Absolute Power for me.
Yeah,
in the sense that Justice League was coming back, but yeah, it flowed very well, and then yeah, just the whole thing with Darkseid, mostly Darkseid's story here is interesting that he is the only one out of every all the multiverses, every single universe, he's the only one. And so the fact that his power gets split or just dampened because of that fact, is interesting. And then the fact that they shut it off and it all comes surging back, and he's I need to know why this is. And people were telling, I don't remember which, there was a lot of those are new gods, I think, or old gods, or one of the, I don't know exactly. But there was a bunch of people basically telling him why this is, but he still would not accept any of it and still was absolutely hell-bent on finding the Spectre. And then when he finally showed up in the Justice League headquarters, when you read the Justice League side first, you're just okay, this is a bit weird. He's got a new look, and they're all he's bonded with the Spectre. And you're just okay, this is interesting. And then he just, fades out of existence, seemingly dies, and leaving behind the portal into the Absolute Universe. And then, looking at the Darkseid story side, you're really seeing what's happening. And just, I'm not sure if I like the fact that they're going to be focusing a bit more on Booster Gold, possibly, for, some of this, considering he's the only one that can actually travel to the Absolute Universe.
I think he will play a bigger role in the Absolute Universe than he will in Earth 2 for a while, at least, because he lost the tether to Earth 2, so he's kind of stuck there right now.
No, exactly. So that's why I'm I don't know how I feel about Booster Gold right now. I normally I don't really like him that much. I find him annoying. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that one. It seems like he is trying to change or whatever, his character, supposedly. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good start to this new chapter in DC. I'd give this special a 7.
Okay. I think I'm gonna give this one an 8. A lot of that is based on, I think it sets up some stuff to come that is very interesting. This is a weird kind of issue in that it's less focused with being its own thing and more focused on kicking off the new universe and the new chapter of DC. And so I think on that front, it is successful. On its own front, it's not amazing, but I still think it was solid. Also, it gets points because, Sebastian, there was a Night Terrors reference. We saw Nightmare very briefly in a flashback.
We did.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8. Pretty solid.
Did see a Night Terrors reference. We saw, I think it was like the Lazarus World or whatever the frick that one was called.
Lazarus Planet. I think there was probably a Dark Crisis reference.
Obviously there was the most recent ones, Beast World, and then Absolute Power, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, they mentioned a bunch of events there. But yeah, all right, moving on here. I'm gonna talk about Deadpool number 7 very quickly. Don't have a lot to say on that, mostly because it's a super simple, not too complicated story. But writer Cody Ziegler, apparently there's a co-writer as well, Alexis Quasarano, and then we got our artist and Andrea DeVito. So last issue, Deadpool quote unquote dies. He's still dead in this one, but his body isn't deteriorating, so that's why I'm saying quote unquote, because if he truly is dead, then his body would decompose. But it's not, so I don't know, we'll see. But basically it starts off with his daughter, I think her name is Ellie, if I'm not mistaken. I'm so right. She's just fighting a bunch of random henchmen with Princess, and it's basically just that and Taskmaster taking over the business, and he sends her onto, well, he doesn't specifically send her, she volunteers kind of. She's just yeah, I'm going, you can't do it, into this startup tech company that has a bunch of a bunch of money for being relatively new business. So Ellie and Princess, they break into the building, fight a bunch of these weird clone android people that keep making really bad computer office puns when fighting. And then at the very end, Ellie meets one of Deadpool's exes, I guess, Valentine Wong.
Oh, Val's back. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Ellie is just trying to find a way to bring her dad back. That's it. That's the entire issue, though. It's very simple, and I'm still liking Deadpool. Genuinely, I like the daughter. She's good. She is trying to be Deadpool, but it feels different than Deadpool. It doesn't feel as fourth wall breaky. Well, I don't think she ever breaks the fourth wall, but she does try to do puns and stuff like that. And for the most part, they're not horrible puns. Someone that has no idea what the hell they're doing. Her puns they're not bad, but they're not Deadpool's, And the thing about Deadpool is the whole fourth wall break and stuff like that, and she just can't or doesn't. I don't know how that works with Deadpool really, but yeah, it's a bit fresh in that sense that it still feels like Deadpool, but not in a way. So I'm still enjoying this series, actually. I'd give this an 8.
All right. Well, how about we do the latest issue of Redcoat? This is Redcoat number 6, written by Jeff Johns, and the artist is Brian Hitch. This is the conclusion to the first arc, mostly. There is going to be an epilogue next issue, supposedly. But as far as it kind of, for all intents and purposes, this is the main conclusion of this first Redcoat arc. And, I think it's okay. I think it's decent enough. I don't think it's amazing. It is a fairly simple one. It's mostly just we have, at the end of the last issue, we found out that Benedict Arnold was, in fact, the Grand Architect, and that George Washington was not alive, and that it was Benedict Arnold the entire time. So Benny and all the other henchmen people, they all have Simon on this boat captive. Apparently they have once again cut him with the axe, so as soon as the sun comes up, he'll open the door to hell, and hellfire will be unleashed and just torch North America. And so this kind of starts happening a little bit earlier than they had planned it to, because when the reflected moonlight hits Simon, since that is obviously light reflected off of the sun, it kind of starts sending out these pulses of this hellfire energy. Not the full thing, not enough to destroy everything, but it's these kind of increasingly large explosions that are vaporizing the henchmen and everything. The big one ultimately must end up breaking whatever was holding Simon down, because he gets up and has a fight with Benny. Benny just fucking beats him the fuck up. But then Albert Einstein, who is still here, he snuck out of the boat. He ends up figuring out that he can use the axe of lies to take some to cut himself, which will then end up counteracting the immortality curse, like that will kill Simon. And so he does that. And then, the door to hell closes completely. Simon is okay. Somehow there's this last big energy, pulse explosion, which ends up knocking Benny off of the boat. And then it also knocks Einstein off the boat. And so Simon has to kind of make a choice because the ship is drifting out to sea. And as we found out in a previous issue, if the ship, if he kind of leaves the boundaries of America too much, then he will just age into dust immediately. So the ship is kind of drifting out to sea, and Einstein has also fallen off the ship. So Simon has to make the choice to jump and swim farther away from the shore to try and save Einstein, thus aging him probably to death, or to just escape back to shore. So he does jump off. He ends up saving Einstein, kind of completing his character arc of, becoming more invested in humanity and people, kind of letting himself open up a little bit more and not, close himself off so much because he doesn't want to lose everybody to the point where he just becomes cold and kind of this, this very much scoundrel character that he's been for the entire run up to this point. So he doesn't save Simon, swims back to shore. He's aging. He's like 90 years old by the time he reaches the shore. Then when he gets to the shore, he ends up kind of being restored back to his, normal age. And it's all fine. He also seems to have learned some of the magic. He seems to have some control over that, at least a little bit. And then they're kind of talking. They're like, "Ooh, good thing it was Benedict Arnold we were fighting and not George Washington. Good thing George Washington wasn't really alive, because like if he was, that would have been bad. I don't know if we could have beaten George Washington." And then it cuts to a shot of George Washington, who is very much still alive, actually. And that's the end of the issue. And so my thoughts on this are fairly complicated. I think as far as the main part of this story goes, it's fine. There's some good art, and I think it flows well enough, but it is kind of, I don't know, it's not like this amazing conclusion. Like, it's kind of more or less, like, I was not like predicting exactly what was going to happen, but nothing in this issue surprised me in the way it unfolded. Like, it all made a lot of sense. Even the, supposed sacrifice of Simon to save Einstein, like, that's something that's been building up in his character arc. So like all that makes sense, and that's all fine. It's all decently executed. I think what is both interesting and also kind of odd is the fact that Washington is still alive. It's interesting because I think the way that they are talking about him is very, like, it's kind of intimidating. Like, they're building up this myth around him as this, insane, like the most dangerous of all the immortals. And I think that is cool because it adds to the already pretty huge, I don't know, myth is probably not the right word in the historical context, but he kind of is this mythical figure in a sense, this figurehead of the revolution, the U.S. Revolution. A lot of that kind of, he is the face of America in a lot of ways, or at least the face of, the start of America. And so I think to add this myth around him being this terrifying immortal onto his already established historical kind of legend, I think that's cool. And I think that's interesting. And I think it could be some very cool stuff coming up further along in this series. And I'm interested to see, I hope that he's actually kind of cool and terrifying instead of being kind of like Benny was and just kind of being this fraud that is just kind of trying to, because Benny essentially wants to, let Hellfire destroy America and then kind of build his own empire once it's kind of able to be inhabited again. I hope that Washington's motivations are kind of cooler, or not even cooler, but at least like, maybe cooler is the word. They may not be as deep or interesting, but I think I want him to kind of have a bigger presence than Benny did. On the other hand, I think it is a little bit dumb. This is now like a triple fake out with whether or not Washington is alive. Because like most of the first 4 issues, we thought he was dead. And then at the end, they were like, no, he's actually alive. And then at the end of last issue, they were like, actually, George Washington is dead. Benny is the villain for the whole thing. And then now they're like, actually, Benny wasn't the main villain. George Washington is still alive. And so it's like, I don't know, that kind of triple plot twist around the same plot point. I don't know how I feel about that. But besides that, the issue is fine. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's as good as the last issue. I will keep going, although I think I mostly am going to keep going for just to see what happens with the Washington plot, because I think that is very interesting at this point. However, I think if not for the Washington thing, I don't know if I would keep going with this, because this does feel like it kind of wraps up Simon's character arc. And so as a result, I think this would act as kind of a satisfying conclusion to the entire series if this was the wrap-up. But the Washington stuff is interesting enough that I probably will keep reading it for a little bit at least, see how it goes. But yeah, this is certainly not a highlight of the series for me, this issue.
Man, oh man, let's talk about Redcoat here. This was fine, honestly. Yeah, I didn't hate it as much as some of the last ones. I'll say that. Oh, dude, every time I think this series has so much dialogue. Genuinely, like between the people talking and then the mounds of narration that every issue has. I'm just
Simon will never shut up in the narration boxes.
It's so much. Like, you're reading for forever on these. And that's not always a bad thing, but when every single issue has just like paragraphs like per page, it's like, dude, I'm just tired of it. Like, let me just like read these, enjoy it, but it's like, I don't know, man. I don't enjoy this. This is like, this one was fine, I think. The George Washington thing at the very end, I don't truly know if we needed that, honestly. It's cool to see that Redcoat is like kind of learning something, I guess. Albert leaving is gonna be a godsend. But yeah, ultimately, I stuck with this one longer than I did with whatchamacallit, the green guy, Geiger. There it is. But oof, man, I think I'll keep going here a little bit to see what the next arc is about, But ultimately, I don't enjoy the series that much. I really don't. I just think it's, for me, like, art is great. I think the art is fine. For me, it's really just the dialogue and partly the story as well. Mostly the dialogue. It's so much on top of it, and you're just like, you're reading. It feels like, well, forever. It feels like, honestly. And so yeah, but like I said, I think this one ultimately I thought was fine. He's like, him willing to sacrifice himself for Albert Einstein. Like, saw some bit of character development there. The other guy, like, basically being trapped underwater for the rest of his life. Yeah, ultimately, I think I'll give this one like a 7. But yeah, we'll stick with it for now. But I'm ready to drop it.
I am kind of surprised you're sticking with it, because it does not seem like you like this very much. And I'm kind of surprised you gave it a 7, because I'm giving it a 6, and it seems like you liked it less than I did.
Well, like I don't like the series overall. I know I liked less than you. This one specifically, I did not mind, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Genuinely. What are you? Hey, get out of the box. No. Hold on.
I think Sebastian's cat is going somewhere where it shouldn't be.
She's attacking the box.
What's in the box?
Tequila.
You don't want your cat drinking some tequila?
I'm good. All right. Well, moving on here. Let's talk about one that I did not understand at all. Nice House by the Sea, number 3.
Okay. So yeah, this is the Nice House by the Sea, issue number 3. Written by James Tynion IV. The artist is Alvaro Martinez Bueno. So I meant, because this is one of the earlier things I read this week, and I didn't read it that long ago, but I meant to like just flip through it and refresh myself on it before I recorded this. I did not do that, so I don't remember a lot of what happened, but what I do remember, basically, we've got Ryan, we've got Nora, and we've got Reg. They are all from the Nice House on the Lake, and they are now all at the Nice House by the Sea. They run into Oliver, and we find out a little bit more about Oliver's kind of former connection to Walter. So they were kind of like, they were close friends. Walter had a thing for Oliver, but Oliver did not have a thing for Walter. And so it was this kind of like, Oliver was kind of stringing Walter along. Walter kind of didn't take it that way, but a lot of Walter's friends did. And so somewhere along the line, Walter and Oliver had a big falling out. And so that is also, we find out part of the reason why, we find out kind of more about Oliver in this issue as well, because Oliver essentially got invited to the Nice House on the Lake, to Walter's Nice House. And Oliver was essentially like, hey, fuck you. If I'm going to go and like be part of this, because he also, by the way, he knows, and he knew from kind of the start, it seems, all about the apocalypse, all about these nice houses and everything. He knew kind of the whole deal. And so he was basically like, hey, fuck you, Walter. If I'm going to be one of the, people, the final people of humanity that gets saved from this apocalypse, I want it to be because I am like actually exceptional and not just as I'm your friend that you're in love with. And so that's why Oliver declined that one. Then Oliver kind of, really worked to become an exceptional person in his field and got chosen for Max's nice house. Now, this is where things get complicated because it seems like Max is an ex of Nora's from when they were both in high school. We don't really know what happened, but Max, she's the leader of the Nice House by the Sea. She's also one of the aliens from Walter's species, and so like it gets a little bit complex here. But so they kind of find out that Max is running. Okay, I should say the Nice House by the Sea, or the Nice House by the Jesus fucking Christ, the Nice House on the Lake people figure out that Max is the leader of the Nice House by the Sea. It is unclear if they knew before that she was also one of the aliens, but she is one of the aliens. So they kind of all get freaked out by that. And essentially, Oliver is like, okay, it's good to see you guys, but you guys need to get the fuck out of here because you're not supposed to be in this other, in the other Nice House. And if Max finds out that you killed Walter, that is going to be a big fucking problem. So they try to leave, but ultimately, Max shows up and is like, hey, y'all, what's up, motherfuckers? Max seems to know all of them. She doesn't seem to just know Nora, but she knows all of them. And so then Max is like, okay, everybody, just go back to the Nice House on the lake and tell Walter that I will be coming to say hi to him in a couple of days. And they're like, Walter's dead, though. They don't say that, but they were like, okay, fine, we'll go back to the Nice House on the lake, and we will, tell Walter and whatever. And they did kind of mention, Max kind of mentioned that that she was kind of afraid or, anticipating, but not very, positively, the moment when their kind of houses would collide, or not even necessarily theirs, but just any of the houses would collide. And so, yeah, so so the other people go to the Nice House, back to the Nice House on the lake. Walter is kind of around. He's the dog still. There's stuff going on there, apparently. I don't really know. I wasn't entirely sure which house he was at. I don't know if he somehow came through the portal and went to the Nice House by the Sea. Regardless, though, this is setting up some interesting stuff. I think as far as that's kind of what the issue is, and that's where it kind of ends. I don't think they do much more besides that. So this is a lot of dialogue. This is a very dialogue-heavy issue. It's a lot of just kind of discussing, kind of where both houses sit and also where they sit in relation to each other. And it's ratcheting up the tension quite nicely. I really enjoy how it is building up the tension between these two groups, which will eventually, ultimately, very likely come to this big, explosive head, this climactic confrontation. I think what is interesting is now that Max is aware that some of the other, lake house people have crossed over to the Sea House. How is that going to progress? Because we know that Walter is still alive, and Nora also knows that Walter is still alive. However, none of the other Nice House by the Lake people do. So the question is, if there's going to be a big conflict, the question is, what side is the conflict going to be coming from? Because, and I think it'll probably come from both ultimately, but I think, like, my question is, in the immediate future, will the conflict come from Walter's house discovering that he is still alive so that, they have somebody to talk to Max? Or, because presumably Nora must be able to have a way to reach Walter. Like, surely she has got a way to reach Walter. So if that's the case, he might have to, stop faking his own death. And that will create a lot of conflict at the lake house. The alternative is that they don't, have him talk to Max, in which case Max just thinks that they all killed Walter, in which case that's going to be another big fucking problem as well. So these two houses will definitely come into conflict at some point. I don't know when or how. Maybe they won't, but I would be shocked if they didn't. The question is kind of where that conflict is going to be coming from. And I'm very interested to see that. The promise of that conflict, I think, is the best part of this issue, because it is the only kind of thing that is really happening in this issue. Otherwise, it's just the characters of these two houses kind of, just reuniting and kind of getting up to speed on where they are collectively. For me, yeah, it's the stuff that is upcoming in the series that I think this issue is actually the best showcase for, because I think that's the stuff that'll be very interesting. We'll just have to see kind of where that goes in future issues.
Yeah, I'm starting to get lost in the sauce on this series.
Yeah.
I thought I was understanding it, and then they started name dropping a bunch of people that I didn't remember at all. So yeah, I didn't realize they were in the nice house by the sea. I know they were. I know they were somewhere. I thought they were at the lake house or something.
See, I think it's jumping back and forth potentially though. I think the Walter Dodge stuff might still be at the lake house, but I'm not positive. So
I'm pretty sure that's at the lake. Well, it was raining at the nice house by the sea though.
Yeah, and
Walter they're not the ones with the dog though.
Right, but Walter is the dog.
Yeah,
and Walter saw Reg, Nora, and Ryan go through the portal to the sea house. So I'm wondering if he just followed them through.
But then the person that let the dog in from the storm, I think they'd be a little bit more freaked out, and they wouldn't have just been like, who left you outside?
So that is true, and I did think about that. The only explanation I can think of is that the nice, and this, by the way, it could just very well be the lake house. It probably is, but the thing that I was thinking of in that instance was, well, maybe like, because the Nice House by the Sea group, they're not friends, they're just random people. So, like, I feel like, have less qualms about doing things collectively, and so I wouldn't be surprised if that person who did take the dog in was just like, one of the other people just probably wished for a dog, like, whatever, it's not the end of the world. But it probably is by the lake house because of that. But I don't know.
Okay. And then, there was a bunch of Walter stuff. I think it was Nora that started drinking when they were started talking about Walter, though.
Yep.
So,
I think she didn't want to have to. I think she didn't want to have to explain that Walter was dead. I think that was actually kind of a fun moment because Oliver was like, they were like, all right, how are you guys all? And Nora's like, I'm gonna need a drink. And then Oliver's like, how's Walter? And she's like, you know what? I'm gonna take the whole fucking bottle.
Yeah. And so then I was like, okay. And then they just basically talked about their life before the houses.
Yeah.
And then Max, that's the alien for the sea house,
yes,
right?
For the sea house, yep.
Yeah. She finds the lake house people and sends them back.
Yeah.
I remember there was, I think it was Oliver that started talking about how only one house is going to survive.
Yep.
Like, essentially, there's more than these two houses, and that, like, ultimately, there's only one house that survives, so there's only be, like, 5 people of humanity left or something like that.
I think it'll be 10. I think there's supposed to be 10 people at each lake house.
Okay, I don't know.
At each house, rather, yeah.
Whatever, yeah. Anyway. And then, she's sent back, and then we get another creepy, just Walter dog moment where it looks weird. So, when I was reading this, I was confused, right? Now that we've talked about it, this issue obviously meant a lot in some sense, right?
Yeah.
Mostly the fact that Max might be going over to the lake house to meet with Walter.
Right.
But they don't know Walter's. Well, the lake house people don't know Walter's alive.
Yeah. Except for Nora, who does.
Nora does. She does?
Nora does know, yeah. She was the one who helped orchestrate the entire faking of Walter's death.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if she can get in touch with Walter and like get him to meet with Max somehow, then it could be a different kind of conflict that the series is building up to.
Well, Walter is just the dog, right? So can't Nora just talk to the dog in private? Just be like, listen, this.
Yeah, probably. But I think there is some other way she has of communicating with him. I'm not entirely sure, though.
Okay. Well, and I don't know. I thought there was going to be some huge conflict because I thought nobody knew Walter was alive, but Nora does know he's alive.
Yeah, there might still be. It's just I'm not entirely clear on where the conflict will come from.
I don't know. I'm going to say that. Same score as last time. What did I give it last time? 7. Oof, that's a bit mighty, but 7 it is.
I'm going to give it an 8. I think I'm going to go with Hyde Street.
Hyde Street. All right.
Yeah. This is Hyde Street #1, written by Jeff Johns. The artist is Yvonne Reese. This is the next issue, or the next series, under the Ghost Machine imprint, which is the same one that does Geiger and Rook Exodus and Redcoat. This is not connected to any of those. It's its own thing. So, and this is the first of the horror series from the Ghost Machine imprint. And as a result, I really like horror comics, so I was very excited for this. I did not love this, though. There's stuff about it that I do like, and I kind of got to grips with it by the end, but there was, towards the middle, I was like, there's kind of, I don't really know what's going on here. Because towards the middle, it kind of jumps between the past and the present, but it doesn't always let you know when it's doing that, and so it got a little bit confusing. But regardless, the overall plot is it starts off with this kind of cold open sequence where there's this old lady trying to cross the road, and this like Boy Scout kid pops up and he's like, hey, let me help you cross the road. And then as he's doing that, he ends up like being like, hey, by the way, I know you used cyanide to kill your daughter and your husband. And then he just has her get run over by a steamroller. And that's the start of the issue. And then this other guy pops up whose name is Mr. X-Ray. And we kind of find out these two guys, they're stuck on Hyde Street. And so it seems like anytime anybody comes over to Hyde Street, it's the goal of these people who permanently inhabit Hyde Street to like send them to eternal damnation or something. Pranky, the Boy Scout kid, he just kind of wants to kill them, and he gets points for it, but Mr. X-Ray is kind of not like happy with the way he's handling it. And essentially it seems like, based on stuff that happens at the end, there's this overall kind of ruler of Hyde Street whose name is the Scorekeeper. And if you essentially collect enough souls or whatever, then the Scorekeeper will let this whoever it is go back into the real world. And then the rest of the issue is kind of just this explanation of how Mr. X-Ray got to Hyde Street. Basically, he was this kind of like con man, like toy manufacturer / seller in the 60s who kind of was just very much a scam artist, and kind of the stuff he was selling, just selling these products that didn't really do anything, but he had made a lot of money from it. He had kind of this one friend who was like his assistant. That assistant ends up jumping out the 14th story window of their office and ends up dying. And then, after that, so this kid shows up and she's like, hey, you're my dad. And he's like, hey, fuck you. I don't want to be your dad. But he's like, it does seem like he is actually her dad. And so she goes running off. She's like very upset. And then he's like, no, come back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like be that mean. And then she just disappears in the street. And that's how he ends up on Hyde Street, is he runs into Pranky and somehow just gets stuck on Hyde Street. And that's kind of the issue. And yeah, I don't know. It's fine. The stuff in the present is not great. The stuff in the present is cool. Stuff in the past, the flashback, is not great. Not a huge fan of that. I think like the origin of Mr. X-Ray, it's not really anything that I think is all that unique or cool or interesting. It's just kind of whatever. I get that it kind of has to be there to set up this character. I don't know if he's really going to be kind of the main character of the series, or if it's going to be I think next issue is very focused on Pranky, it seems. But I don't know. Regardless, like the stuff on Hyde Street, I think is cool and is interesting and has some cool, like, gory moments. The art's good. The opening sequence in particular, when that old lady dies, is actually very cool, I think. But the rest of it was just fine. I don't know. I think it definitely was a disappointment for me. I thought I was going to like this more. I will stick with it for at least a few more issues, maybe 2 or 3 more issues. But especially as this is not looped into Redcoat or Geiger, I will drop this if I'm not kind of feeling it after a couple more issues. So it's fine. I definitely don't think it's bad, but it didn't really click with me the way I hoped it would. I
actually quite enjoyed this one. I like the whole kind of like mystery behind the Hyde Street. And, I didn't mind the backstory, it didn't truly explain how he got to Hyde Street. Like, I thought the way people got to Hyde Street was by, like, dying, possibly, but that doesn't seem to be the case, I guess.
No, I think if they get to Hyde Street, it's the goal of these people who live there permanently to take their souls, either by sending them to damnation or I guess to killing them. I guess if they ask for forgiveness, they then can escape Hyde Street. But I think in the case of Mr. X-Ray, I think the Scorekeeper was like, I see potential in you as an inhabitant of Hyde Street. So you're going to be stuck here on Hyde Street carrying out my work until you collect enough souls that I deem you able to just leave.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, we don't really know too much about how it all works or whatever. But yeah, just basically that, yeah, it was like in the era, it was like the 1960s, I think is what it was. And it was the era of like basically just like advertisements, where it was like people would just like flash their advertisements on everything to just try and like sell whatever. And Mr. X-Ray, he was trying to sell these like X-ray glasses that he was trying to sell to kids, because he was like, it's easier to get money out of kids than it is out of adults. And his assistant's like, yeah, man, that's kind of messed up. And he's like, yeah, you want money?
Yeah, that is unfortunately a marketing tactic that is still pretty common.
Yes it is. And he's like, you want money because you got caught embezzling funds or something like that, and you got fired, but I hired you. I also got caught embezzling money, but we don't talk about that. And so yeah, there was this bit where he bought a monkey to like try and sell as a pet.
I forgot about that.
And it bit his hand, and then also fell out of the 14-story window and splatted on the ground.
Yep.
That monkey is also on Hyde Street.
Yeah.
And then his assistant jumped out the window at one point. We didn't actually see that happen. He just talked about it for like a panel, I want to say. Yeah. And then he just ends up on Hyde Street after chasing his quote unquote daughter into the street. Yeah, I really enjoyed the beginning part with the old grandma and Frankie. I'm liking the mystery behind what exactly is Hyde Street, and I mean I like Mr. X-Ray's character on Hyde Street. He seems to be a little bit more just like relaxed, I want to say. I don't know, like
he's kind of like,
if anything, I don't know.
He seems to be like, since coming to Hyde Street, he kind of was like, oh shit, man, this all sucks, and I'm just gonna kind of just do my work and kind of try to get out of here. But he's not like he's much less like greedy and focused on wealth and everything. Now he's just like, I just am trying to leave Hyde Street.
Yeah, exactly. But he has like he still has some morals behind it too, right?
Right.
Because like Frankie just wants to like Frankie's way of doing it is just killing everybody.
Yeah, he's a deranged, like murderous lunatic.
Yeah, but like for Mr. X-Ray, he seems to be wanting people to beg for forgiveness so they can leave.
Yeah,
that's we haven't seen him like actually help anybody, so we don't actually know. But it's just what it seemed based off his conversations with Frankie and stuff like that. So yeah. But I'm enjoying this one so far. We'll see how it goes in the next two. But yeah, I like this one. I'm gonna give it an 8.
I'm gonna give it a 7. Again, I don't think it's bad. I just think like the Hyde Street stuff I did really like. I just think that the flashback origin of X-Ray was not my favorite. So yeah, 7.
All right. Well, I will talk about Birds of Prey real quick then.
All right. Yeah, I'm off this book, by the way. I did drop it.
Yeah, he shouldn't have dropped it. This one was pretty all right. The writer is Kelly
Thompson.
What
a ringing endorsement. This one was pretty all right.
Yeah. Hey, I'll talk
really
about
making me feel like I missed out on this one.
Hold on. Writer Kelly Thompson, artist
Sammy Basri.
No, I actually liked this one. It was good. I liked it. The art is very good. Liking the art right now. Right? So the story so far is that Cassandra Cain is has gone undercover in this like corporation or something like that. They're called the Ninth Day. And basically what her whole goal is and what the Birds of Prey like new mission is to find these like these 5 Amazons that went missing. So yeah, Cassandra Cain went undercover there. It's we see Dinah, Barbara Gordon, and Big Barda. They're in like the watchtower with these 2 other Amazons whose names I do not know, with Onyx and Grace. And then so it's basically Onyx and the 2 Amazons are basically just like fighting with Barda in like a training room. They're just like, just doing training stuff. Barbara and Dinah are overseeing the mission, and then Cassandra Cain is in the Ninth Day. So basically just going undercover and stuff, and just proving to them that like she is who she says she is. She's undercover as like I don't know what exactly. Truly, I really don't know what. I don't even have words to just try and figure out what exactly she's posing as. But I don't know. It wasn't. When I say it's all right, I mean that because it wasn't a lot to go off of right now. It's like all we know is that they're trying to find these 5 missing Amazon warriors, and we know they're in the Ninth Day because it's the last panel. It shows that this company is like experimenting on them or something like that. And that's where it ends basically. But the art for me is what really made me like this one. The like practice fight between Barda and the 2 Amazons was really good, and just the like story right now, like nothing too much to go off of. So I'm not gonna say it's like interesting or uninteresting. But I'm liking it the start better than the last arc we had with the weird portal with Vixen or whatever. So I'm still gonna still stick with it. I don't think this is bad yet. So I'm gonna give this one an 8 as well.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep reading this series. I'm just going to do it a month behind on DC Universe Infinite. So maybe I'll talk about this issue when you talk about the next issue. But yeah, I'm no longer picking it up as it drops. All right. Next up, Sebastian, let's do your favorite series, Spider-Gwen the Ghost Spider, the series that you will never let me drop. This is issue number 6 of Spider-Gwen the Ghost Spider. It is written by Stephanie Phillips and the artist is Paolo Vianelli. So, okay. I over the past couple issues of this series, right? The past like 3 issues in particular, I have been getting more positive on this series. I think the way that this series, used Chameleon in the last arc was cool and interesting. I think the buildup of a lot of Gwen's kind of, conflicts and disparate plots that were all kind of tying together into that arc, and then all kind of worked. I think it was balanced well. Genuinely, I think it was a solid arc overall that I ended up enjoying more or less, because I do think it got better as it went along, and I think a lot of the elements that were pulled in were actually quite fresh and interesting, and I liked the dynamic between Gwen and Chameleon. I did not like this issue very much, though. I think this is boring. I think this issue is kind of this feels more like the first couple issues in this arc, where I just feel like it's not really doing anything that I enjoyed. I mean, it starts off okay. Well, it's kind of told a little bit non-linearly, but it starts off with Gwen is going to try and get intel about Black Tarantula from this bar, which seemingly is under the control of Black Tarantula. They do not like that. They'll try to beat her up. So she's fighting them off, and then Jessica Jones shows up. She's on the cover. She's the big guest star of this issue. And then so it kind of flashes back a little bit. We have another instance of Gwen meeting the guy she met in the coffee shop. We definitively know in this issue now that the person she met in the coffee shop, his name is Fabian, he is the son of Black Tarantula. So that's when we were talking about last issue. That is correct. He is the new Black Tarantula. So they have a bit of a talk. Then it cuts back to the present. Gwen and Jess beat up a bunch of people, and they go back and have a kind of a talk, a heart-to-heart, where Jess essentially becomes Gwen's mentor in this issue.
Yeah.
And this conversation did not land for me in the slightest, actually. I feel like Jess's characterization in here is way off. She's like way more like lighthearted and quippy here than I feel like she is in every other iteration of this character. It feels really weird. Like, it feels very out of character for her. And I haven't read a whole bunch of Jessica Jones stuff. I've read some, but this is not the voice of the character that I am used to. And that's not always a bad thing, but I think it's so different here that it doesn't work. It just doesn't even feel like it's the same character to me. Regardless, so anyway, after that heart-to-heart, Gwen just kind of goes home, and she sees a letter from the new Black Tarantula. She's like, oh no, Black Tarantula's here. We also see, by the way, there's like a weird ceremony where the main like father Black Tarantula gives the son like some vial of liquid, and it like gives him a power-up or something. And that's all that happens in this issue. So this is, even if I was pulling this, like, without Sebastian making me, this issue would probably have at the very least put it very close to being cut. I just think it's not interesting. It's like, it's not really doing much to advance it's not really doing anything to advance the Black Tarantula plot at all, besides the fact that new Black Tarantula took a serum or something. It's not like introducing new plot threads like the Chameleon thing. Like, it's very focused on Black Tarantula without doing much to advance that plot. And it is kind of, I guess, like, it is exploring the aftermath of the Chameleon arc and Gwen's kind of search for Black Tarantula, but it doesn't do it in an interesting way. It also takes like a long, like not that long, but it takes some time at the start of the issue to like recap the entire last arc. And that was weird. That was like a very like 60s, 70s move that I do not like seeing in modern comics. It's especially like egregious because there's a fucking previously on page at the start of the issue of every issue that gives like a brief summary of the previous event. So it's like, why have her then narrate what happened in the last arc in the issue itself? I don't know. So yeah, I know Sebastian will not let me drop this, and that's fine. But I this issue was like, this was the kind of thing that I was worried the series was going to be at the start of it. I do think it elevated itself in issues 3, 4, and 5, but now it's back to the start of that just very like bland and not that interesting Spider-Gwen story that unfortunately is kind of commonplace in modern comics. So yeah, this one, it wasn't for me.
Listen, I think this one is pretty good. I like it in its own way. The Jessica Jones thing that you were saying, I think her character was fine, actually. You know, like usually when I read things with Jessica Jones, it's like super serious, like genuinely like a super serious thing that she is like a part of. Like there was the Sentry one, like genuinely people were dying. That's it's got to be serious there. I think the last one I saw was she the Captain America one? No, that was just Misty Knight. Yeah, that's the last thing I can remember reading with Jessica Jones was the Sentry one. This one, it was literally just, Pete called in a favor to a friend, and that's it. Like it's not nothing too serious, nothing, like world ending, anything like that. Just helping out a friend. So like I think for her to like be like a little less like serious, a little more like jokey-ish, especially with someone like Gwen, who's like, like kind of brings like it kind of seemed like it brought out the joke side of Jessica Jones as well. But yeah, so I didn't mind her character in this at all. I think for me the story was a bit, that's where it was lacking for me. In this one, it was like you said, like it didn't really move anything forward at all, really. We have definitive proof of who the new Black Tarantula is. Like, yeah, sure. Besides that, it wasn't really anything new. The bar fight scene was like fine. Like it was kind of nice for Jessica Jones to mention like how Spider-Gwen has like her own thing going on compared to the other spiders. But it's still shouldn't be sticking to the shadows or whatever like Gwen like was originally planning on doing. Like for this one, I didn't mind it. It wasn't like I don't would I say it's the worst one so far? I don't know.
I think this is.
I really didn't like that one where her powers came in, so
I did like that issue.
yeah, I know. Listen, all right, this one I'll say this one was the most boring. I'll say that for sure. Second least favorite, I really didn't like the one with the powers, but it's still not like to me it still is one of the better Spider-Gwen series I have read. And
I do agree with that actually, but I just think the Spider-Gwen like quality bar in terms of comic series is not super high. So
exactly, but still, I still think this is like pretty good for a Spider-Gwen series. I still think this is very, very good. So I'm gonna still stick with it. We're riding to the end on this one. There's no doubt in my mind. But other than that, like, for this issue specifically, I just thought it was just a bit boring. But yeah, I'd give it a 7.
I'm gonna give it a 5. I think for me, the main problem I have with Jess's characterization in this is, first of all, I think of her, because she is funny a lot of times, but I think of her humor as less like quippy humor and more like actively mean and sarcastic humor.
Yeah.
And that's not what she's doing here. And I also think the other thing is, and maybe I'm just not remembering this correctly, but I don't think Jess really likes mentoring people. And so just to see her like so like just willingly jump into this mentor role for Gwen, who she's never met, felt kind of weird to me. The other thing is also the fact that we learn in this issue that Peter like called it a favor and that it was Jess who pulled Gwen out of the river and everything. Like, who cares? That was a mystery that I had forgotten was a mystery. And I remember even like in that first issue, I was like, why is that the cliffhanger? It's a weak ass mystery. And it just is like, why even bother to make that a mystery when the reveal is just kind of nothing? So I don't know. This issue I didn't like very much. Gave it a 5. I think it's just very, 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 very middle of the road. Just okay.
And I don't think she's really jumping onto the whole mentor role. I think it's just be like a guardian angel-ish type bit, like loosely. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if she'll ever, if she comes back, and gives more advice, then yeah, that could be a bit more of a like, then we could say it's mentor. But like right now, I think
she will.
I don't know. It's yeah. See, I'd say normally she doesn't do mentor roles for when people are like starting out, because even with the Sentry one, it seemed like she was fine being a mentor to the new Sentry.
I guess
her. And so like I wouldn't say she hates like. I would say she just thinks she's not suited for it, like one of those characters where she's like, I think you can find someone better than me, And that's what she told Gwen technically too in this one. It's like, don't stick to the shadows like I do. Like that's not for you, So I think that's where she like kind of like she's like, I won't be a mentor to you, but like You got this. Yeah.
Yeah, but Jess also was saying like, hey, if you need anything, like let me know and I'll help you with it. So I don't know. That seems like kind of a mentor.
That's more of that's more of like a friend thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's the other thing. I don't think Jess is a character that's very quick to make friends. So even that is still like that's not a satisfying explanation for me.
Okay, but if you're referring to Spider-Man, right? I don't know. I don't know.
Sure, I still don't think she'd be like this warm right off the bat. It just doesn't seem So that was more my thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next one is Daredevil.
Okay, Sebastian. This is Daredevil number 14. It is written by Saladin Ahmed, and the artist is Luigi Zagaria. Let me just say, Sebastian, this issue, I didn't like it. I didn't like this issue, Sebastian.
Is that a surprise?
It's not okay. It's not like a surprise, but like this one I think is worse than this series normally is. Also, bad cover.
Yeah, cover's awful. Like, why? What is the point?
So okay, I thought this issue was going to be good actually, because the first 3 pages of this issue I think are great. Like it's not much. It's just kind of Matt being like, hey, I'm quitting the priesthood because I couldn't do it. He's talking to God. He's like, hey, I could not be this priest. It's not something I can do. And he says the line like, even though I failed to serve you as your priest, I will continue to serve you as your devil. And it's this glorious picture. He's like leaping backwards off the building. It is like pure. It's such pure distilled Daredevil writing. And immediately I was like, hey, this is a good sign. Maybe Saladin Ahmed has like really captured the voice of Matt here. Like maybe he's really like he's kind of gotten into the flow of things. It took 14 fucking issues, but maybe he's there. Then the rest of the issue, nothing fucking happens. Like literally, this issue is completely like nothing. It's nothing. And that is why this issue pissed me off, because up to this point, with very rare exceptions, I think what has been good about this series has been the ideas and the concepts. And I think in particular, the last couple issues have had good cliffhangers that genuinely like make me interested to see where the series is going, or they have cool ideas, that genuinely do feel fresh and unique, that do feel like they're doing something different and cool. It's just the execution I feel like has not been very well, pulled off in this series. And like the execution, the other thing is like even those plot points that I do like have kind of feel they kind of feel like they've been hammered into the ground, but at least they were interesting ideas to explore. I just don't necessarily like the way that they were explored. This one, it doesn't have anything. It's just like Matt talks to God. He's like, hey, I'm not a priest anymore. Then he goes and beats up some of the members of the Heat. Except they're not the Heat anymore because Fisk is no longer controlling them. So there's kind of some hints that it's going to turn into like a gang war where they'll kind of split into different factions and they'll try and kind of vie for control of the city against each other. So he fights some of the Heat. It's fine. It's an okay action sequence, I guess. It's not very good. Then like Matt gets a hotel and he runs into Elektra, like pops up to visit and is like, hey, there's a demon going around like killing people. And she's also like, hey, I fucking hate you, Matt. Like, I don't want to. She's like, you suck. And, you weren't around when I needed you or whatever. And I wasn't entirely sure like when she was referring to there, because I don't think like either it referred to when he ran away from Fisk last issue, or it referred to when he literally died. So I'm not entirely sure. Like this felt, I know they were kind of building up to some tension between the two of them. This felt out of nowhere though. Like this kind of feels like it escalated like incredibly quickly to the point where it's a little bit unbelievable to me. Regardless though, so Matt goes on the hunt for like this devil, which is not Father Hobby, and and we then get another fucking scene where he just goes to another fight between the Heat and the Magia, and he just picks this dude up and he's like, tell me about this devil. And it's like, he's like, all right, yeah, there's like a devil roaming around that's killing people. And that's it. This issue did nothing that we didn't already know. Like, yes, it escalated the tension of Matt and Elektra. It did do that, but there was already some tension there. So this escalating it doesn't escalate it to a point that really like feels like it's a big moment. It just feels out of place. The action sequences with the Heat, there's 2 of them, and neither of them feel important. The stuff about the devil being on the loose, like we already fucking knew that. So this issue is completely fucking pointless. The events of this issue probably could have been condensed into like a third of an issue, tacked on to another fucking issue. So I don't know. this one is the first issue, at least in a while, where I have been actively irritated at the series for feeling like it has just wasted an entire issue. So I don't know. Like I like, if I were not as big of a Daredevil shill as I am, I would 100% have dropped this. If not before this issue, then for sure with this issue. So I don't know. Like, again, the first 3 pages I really liked. I think it was like really great Daredevil writing, and it was the closest I have felt to reading like good Daredevil that I like since Chip Zdarsky's run. But after that, it just spun its wheels and did nothing. So yeah, this issue is kind of shitty.
What can I say about this Daredevil one? Listen, man, genuinely, I'm not going to drop it simply because of the fact that it wouldn't matter if I did.
Yeah, I would make you read this regardless.
I'd still be reading this. So, Listen, next cover, it has Kingpin on there. And I don't know, if you've been listening, I'm kind of tired of Kingpin. We've kind of had him, and I didn't really like the whole, last 2 issues simply because I was like, and more Kingpin? What's the deal? And so, yeah, this one, I thought was fine. It really doesn't do anything. The beginning with Matt basically being like, there's usually a whole process to giving up priesthood, but I'm just going to pray to God and be like, listen, I'm not a priest anymore. Deal with it. Okay, fine. Sure. That's fine. Whatever. That's how you want to do it. The Elektra bit, I will say, like you, it felt a bit like out of nowhere. And then, he's trying to find a devil, or that's, Father Javi is clearly controlling. And so, I think, listen, this one, honestly, I mean, I found it easy to read. I found it quick to read. I don't know if that was just because I was so uninterested that it, for me, it felt fast. But I don't know. I thought it was a quick read, genuinely. It didn't do absolutely nothing to the story, but it's like you said, it's just everything we had already known. It didn't really move it anywhere specifically. Besides the fact we did see the PI that Elektra sent to find the kid. He is dead. I'm assuming it was from the actual kid.
What's from the kid?
Yeah, the kid. The devil controlled the kid, and so now, he has some sort of weird devil powers that. Yeah.
I just assumed it was because I don't think we ever saw the demon possess Jason. I just assumed that it was in that dog form that it was attacking Bullseye in, and they just slashed him up.
Oh, okay. See, well, I thought it had caught up to the child.
I don't remember. Maybe it did. I don't remember that at all, though.
We didn't see it, but I thought it was insinuated that it did. That, and it also makes me think that that it did because the PI, when you see him dead there, he's holding a picture of. Is it Jason? Am I saying
his
the
name
wrong
is Jason?
name?
His name is Jason. Yeah.
Oh my God! Wow, I pulled that out of nowhere. Oh my God, I was right. Yeah, you see him holding Jason's photo.
Yeah.
So I think it's Jason. The devil has controlled Jason, and he has some sort of demon dog powers. Although it could just be Father Javi.
Oh my God! For fuck's sake.
So yeah, listen, 6.
Yeah, I'm also gonna give it a 6. If it was not for those first 3 pages, it would be a 5, though. Okay, well, you know what? We're gonna transfer over from a series that Chip Zdarsky used to write to a series that he is currently writing. This is Batman number 153, written by Chip Zdarsky, and the artist is Jorge Jimenez. So this is, I feel, a real make or break point for this run, because honestly, I am surprised that Chip is still on this book. It felt like the entire point of his Batman run was that failsafe and Zur stuff, right? That was even in the arcs that didn't focus on that. It was building up to that for 2 years until it ultimately concluded it, and then had a little epilogue in the anniversary issue and everything that was focusing on the legacy of Batman. Now, I look back on that, the previous part of his run, in a very conflicted manner, because I do think a lot of the individual issues were good. But overall, it was just so drawn out that I just look back on that and think what a fucking drag of a story, because it just felt like it was too drawn out. And I after the ending of that Zur stuff, I was conflicted on whether or not I wanted Chip to stay on this book, and I'm still a little bit conflicted on that. I go back and forth very often because I do like Chip Zdarsky, and I do want to see what else he can do with this character, and I do want to see him do some fresh new stories with this series. But I also, like, again, the series that were not, the arcs that were not looped into Zur and Failsafe, I didn't like that much of his first part of the run. And the stuff that was felt very drawn out. So I was very conflicted. I thought maybe it would have just be best to, like, start with a new creative team for this new era and just kind of, you know, go from there. But he is still sitting around. It's unclear for how long. It could be like, I don't know, 5-6 months, or it could be another like fucking 4 years. We don't really know, but it is still like his run is continuing. So, you know, we just have to kind of, you know, just gotta, you know, we're just gonna read it and we're gonna see if it gets any better. And so, yeah, after the kind of interlude where there were some absolute power tie-ins, we are back with the first new issue of the new arc, the new chapter of this run. It is also the first Batman issue of DC All In. And I think largely this is pretty good. I liked this. So it's interesting because this issue, there's a lot of shit that goes down. Yeah. It's dense. There's a lot of stuff. However, like there's probably like at least 5 new plot lines that get introduced into this. And so it is incredibly impressive that it manages to balance it all so well. This is balanced expertly. Like it never feels like one thing is getting shafted. Never feels like one thing is getting too much play. It's all wrapped up in this really tightly paced and, again, just very well balanced combination of all of these plot points to kick off this new arc. So essentially we've got basically Gotham's kind of in a pretty decent place right now. You know, Bruce has been doing a lot of philanthropic work. He's been doing a lot of nonprofit work, kind of trying to help the city out of its constant funk that it is just always in. And to add to that, Edward Nygma, the Riddler, has also started building up this tech empire. And so we learn later on, Bruce goes to visit him and is like, hey, I'm going to fucking take you down if you, like, do anything funky. And so later on, like, it seems like one of Bruce's employees, maybe the CEO even of Wayne Enterprises right now, I'm not entirely clear, but whoever it is, she's also working, like, with the Riddler. And Riddler wants Bruce to buy and merge with Nygma Tech to provide some more legitimacy, because the mayor is like flooding it in a bunch of red tape because it's like it's the fucking Riddler. Like I'm not just gonna let him do whatever he wants. And so Riddler wants to merge with Wayne Wayne Enterprises to kind of circumvent that. And so we have a lot of focuses on that. And then we have some. So Bruce essentially just goes and tries to stop a diamond or jewel robbery or whatever. In the process of that, he runs into this new character, Commander Star, who, yeah, he's like, this is where some of the social commentary comes in, because it's very clearly like there's a lot of kind of exploration of capitalism and also like patriotism. This guy, his costume sucks. I don't like it, but I think that's intentional. It's like so over designed. It's like if Homelander was invented in the 90s is kind of how I've been thinking of it, because it's so over-designed. He's got like American flags everywhere and everything. He feels like a Homelander-esque character, maybe a little bit more like kind of cunning and not just like, because Homelander is like, he's fucking just lost it. This guy feels like he's kind of very particular in what he's doing, but still with the same kind of mindset of Homelander and kind of, you know, wrapping himself up in the flag just so he can do whatever the fuck he wants. And so Vandal Savage, who is now the commissioner, is all about this guy. He's like, yeah, you rule, man, and everybody else fucking go take down Batman. And so Bruce kind of just dips out of there. There's also, by the way, there's some. This is early in the issue. The Court of Owls is involved somehow. We're not entirely sure how yet, but they do mention it. And then we also have, so then Bruce is like just going home, and then we have again like more kind of commentary on the nature of like billionaires and stuff. There's a particular instance where Bruce kind of tries to offer shelter out of Wayne's shelter to a homeless guy, and he's like, fuck you. And then the mayor gets shot. And then shot and killed. And then some other person, the Wayne CEO or employee or whatever, is like, hey, somebody is trying to take half of your stocks, Bruce. Do you have a brother? That's where the issue ends. Yep. So again, a lot of stuff is juggling. Nygma Tech and the Riddler and how that's all, you know, going on. The reintroduction of Vandal Savage. The death of the mayor, like what's that all about? The Court of Owls stuff. This new Commander Star guy, Bruce's brother. Like, there's a lot of stuff that gets introduced here. And as a result, like it doesn't feel like too much is really happening to develop any of those yet. It's just kind of introducing all of them. But again, genuinely impressive that this issue manages to balance all of those plot threads as well as it does. This should not work. Like, this should absolutely just collapse under the weight of all of its plot threads. It's impressive that it's not. So, also the art's great. Jorge Jimenez is back, so the art is fantastic. So yeah, I did like this issue, and I am excited for where this art is going. I think, I really want to like this series. I really do. I really want to like this run because I love Chip Zdarsky's work on Daredevil. Again, that is my favorite comic run ever. And so I really want this to work. I really want this to be good. And I'm hoping that if, especially if he stays on this book for a while and the quality stays consistent, it might then shift the sentiment on this run as a whole back to being more positive. Because we're not the only ones who feel kind of exhausted with this run. I see a lot of people, I would say more people are saying this than not, who just want Chip to leave the book. I'm not quite there, but I do understand that sentiment. So I'm hoping, again, that this continues to stay good and that can then turn that around and make this a run that is remembered fondly rather than a run that's just like, whatever.
Man, I always never know what to say after your like 10-minute spiels,
I do them too much, man. Like, I'm always editing. When I'm editing, I get like pissed at myself. I'm like, man, I'm making some points that I agree with and that I like, but I should have just shut up so that I don't have to edit as much.
You always talk about like all this, and I'm like, and then in my brain, I'm like, yes, comic good, I like 5. I'm just like, yes. Oh man, it almost feels like an entirely different Batman, honestly.
Yeah, it does feel like kind of a new run, even though it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels entirely different. Like, I don't think you see any of the other Bat family that I remember.
No, you see like his doctor that knows that he's Bruce, but not like the core Bat family.
Yeah, no, yeah. Which is like, that's why, like, the past, like, I don't even know how long of these Batman comics, we've literally had the entire that have been like a very major part in his series. So yeah, for him to just like, there's no Bat family, there's it's I don't even know. It's the Edward Nygma company. You see Bruce Wayne at like a company, like his company or whatever.
Yeah, I think he's not the CEO anymore, but he's still the majority shareholder. I think is what it is.
Yeah. What else? Yeah, the police are trying to arrest Batman again. Another Vandal Savage is commissioner. The mayor is dead. That's. And I know that's going to be like a big part of this first arc, at least, is basically trying to figure. It's going to be more of a detective thing, I think. And
yeah, which I like, actually. I'm glad to see that. Yeah,
I do too. I like it when we go full detective mode for Batman.
Yeah,
I really do. It's I find it more interesting. Yeah. So I'm a little excited. Going forward, simply because it seems like we're going to be going into the more detective side. I won't lie, I find the Court of Owls interesting, but at the same time, I feel like at this point they're overused. It's like anything that happens in Gotham, like not even like I wouldn't say overused, but it's just like, why does everything always have to? I feel like everything that's just like a mystery of Gotham just instantly it's just like it's the Court of Owls.
See, I've never read a Court of Owls book, so this is like kind of my first experience with them.
Oh yeah, it's just like whatever mystery there is, it's Court of Owl related. It's like, well, okay, there could be some mystery. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I enjoyed this for what it was. I didn't mind it. It was pretty good. God, what was his name? Commander Starr. Yeah, not looking forward to that. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I can see him being evil, obviously. Like him being like either related to the Court of Owls or Vandal Savage or something like that.
Or maybe he's just Homelander.
Maybe
this is a Secret Boys crossover.
Yeah, he could just be a Homelander type character where he's all about justice but really just murders people.
No, I mean maybe he could physically be Homelander.
No, he's not Homelander. And then okay. I'm not gonna see. He's not Homelander.
This is my father hobby, Sebastian.
Father Hobby is literally controlling that devil dog, dude.
Oh my god. Okay. All right.
But yeah, I mean, right now, I'd give this a 7. Honestly,
Okay.
there wasn't too much in it that really intrigued me. Besides really the ending with the mayor dying, and
Yep.
me reading the synopsis and basically being, oh, okay, it's going to focus a bit more on the detective side of things. Hopefully, I'm assuming. But yeah, right now, like, there wasn't really anything that really like grabbed me. Besides the fact that this felt genuinely like a different Batman overall.
I don't know. I'm gonna give it an 8. It's actually almost at 9. I think based on just how impressed I am that it managed to balance all this as well as it did. But I'm not near quite that high with it. I am still kind of skeptical of this run, even though I do think this is a promising start because of the just drawn out nature of the first part of this run. So I'm gonna keep it at an 8, but I am very interested and genuinely optimistic about where this could go.
All right, yeah, we will go with Immortal Thor.
All right. This is Immortal Thor number 16, written by Al Ewing and the artist is Jan Bazaldua. So I think I am going to tentatively give this my pick of the week. It's actually almost Batman, but I think I'm going to give it to this. This is the full glorious return to the Earth stuff for Immortal Thor, which I'm very happy about because I think the Earth-based stuff in this book has been the best part of this book, in my opinion. So we have here a big focus on the formation of this new pantheon, if you will. They keep calling it a pantheon of like new gods, but like none of them are gods. I think it's just kind of a more symbolic pantheon of godlike mortals that are meant to oppose Thor. These guys are all assembled by the Minotaur, it seems. So we have basically like Thor kind of is talking about his duties and his hypocrisy in terms of banishing Loki, but then kind of not doing anything when it comes to Enchantress, who is doing a lot of the same kind of similar things as Loki was doing. I think that conversation is fine. He's kind of talking to Sif about that a lot. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's all good. But then we have the Radioactive Man comes on scene in New York. Radioactive Man being a very, very old Thor villain from like literally the 60s, I think is when he was introduced. This is all about the classic villains here. So he's there. Thor comes down to kind of try and face him. And Thor also has his belt of endurance on, which then counteracts the like mind-numbing, intelligence-dimming curse that Enchantress placed on him in the when he's on Earth. So he has a fight with Radioactive Man, and ultimately kind of manages to get him outside of the main part of the city, so he's kind of away from all of the just hugely populated Manhattan area. And then so they fight some more, and in that fight, out pops Mr. Hyde and Cobra, again, 2 very, very old Thor villains. Like, these are some of his earliest ones. And then also Grey Gargoyle. So it's a big fight. Grey Gargoyle ends up touching Thor, which turns him to stone. That's how his powers work. And his belt is kind of stopping it from being as effective as it should be. It should last an hour, but his belt makes it so that if Grey Gargoyle removes his hand, Thor will immediately turn back, basically. So Mr. Hyde just fucking shatters the stone statue of Thor, presumably killing him. And that's kind of the issue, actually, as far as it goes. So yeah, this one just, it worked really well for me. I think we have a good, big action sequence, the likes of which are hit or miss in this series, I think. I think it's actually, this series is not an action series as far as I'm concerned. It is a series that is very heavily focused on philosophy and just the nature of the gods and the nature of immortality. It reads more like a philosophical or theological text a lot of the times than it does as like an action comic. And so, but it does have action moments, absolutely. And I think this is one of the better ones. I think this fight is the best one we've gotten probably since the Thor versus fake Thor fight. So I liked that. That was all good. I liked the musings on Thor's hypocrisy. I think that was interesting. I liked seeing these classic villains again. These villains, I hate reading them in old comics because they're dumb. They're very dumb villains. And, in the 60s and stuff, they were just kind of playing them seriously, right? They were playing them as these major threats for Thor when they were inherently pretty silly. And I don't think the comics were ever self-aware of that in those classic comics. And to be fair, I don't really know if this series is self-aware of how silly these villains are, because it is playing them fairly seriously. However, it does so in a way that is legitimately threatening, and I think part of that's down to the art. The art's good. I've kind of settled into Jen Bazaldua's art. I still probably prefer Martin Kokolo's, but I do like her art on this. I think it does fit this series, and I think, she has really found her footing in drawing this series. I think it's genuinely gotten better, the art has. And so I think the new pantheon of new gods is drawn in a way that is intimidating and imposing, And I think the combination of their powers, I think it all works because they kind of hit Thor so fast that he doesn't really have time to react to it. And so I think it is believable that they actually pose a threat to him here. So that's all good. I like that. And I am curious to see if this is what Loki meant by saying that Thor was, Thor's death was imminent, or if, Loki was talking about a future moment down the line, farther down the series. It seems like Thor is just fine in the next issue based on, the synopsis and everything, and the cover. So I don't know, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's just, dead for a few issues or something. That would be kind of cool. I'd be down with that. But yeah, regardless, I think this is a return to form for the series. It doesn't do as much of the commentary side of it that I think the previous Earth-based stuff excelled at in the series, but that's okay. Not all of it needs to. I think this is just it's a cool, solid issue with a good, solid fight that genuinely does elevate the threat of some of Thor's earliest and silliest foes, and I think it works on that level. So I like this. Is probably my pick of the week.
Yeah, I think this one was generally pretty good, actually. I like the conversation that Thor and Sif were having at the beginning about basically how Thor feels about what his basically about how he's feeling about Loki and Enchantress and the whole thing about why Enchantress is upset and doing all these things to Thor, and how he wonders whether he should bring back her son, but at the same time he understands why he shouldn't, and it's just a bunch of things, and then him going back to Earth to try, he's trying to clear his name, but was it Radiation Man, right?
Radioactive Man.
Radioactive. Okay, it was Radioactive Man. That was my first guess. Then I changed it to Radiation. Radioactive Man shows up, and it pains. He makes it seem like Thor is a villain.
Yeah.
Because he when he first got to Earth, a couple of police officers saw him. They told him to stop, and Thor was gonna give up willingly. And then Radiation Man, as that's what I'm gonna call him now. That's when he shows up saying he's a thunderbolt, I believe.
Yeah, the Thunderbolts have had some weird up and down stuff lately.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but yeah, he calls himself a Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
And I guess the way his powers work is that if he's not glowing green, he's releasing radiation or whatever.
Yeah, that's why they call him Radiation Man.
Yeah, exactly. So he basically a cop tells I think, was it a cop that told him to to stop glowing green or something like that?
Maybe probably
it was to power down or something like that.
Yeah, and Radioactive Man was like, okay, I will, and Thor was like, oh shit, no, that would kill everybody. So
exactly.
Yeah,
and so Thor basically got him out of there with Mjolnir, but by doing that, it made him seem like he's going against the cops, going against Radiation Man, who
attacking Radioactive Man unprovoked, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And so he takes him to Thor takes Radioactive Man to an abandoned building in, what was it, Detroit?
Brooklyn, I think.
Brooklyn. That's what it was.
You're about to say Detroit?
I was about to, but I was like, okay.
Okay.
It's not Detroit. It's Brooklyn. It's Brooklyn.
Yeah, Detroit's in the opposite direction and in another state.
Yes, it is. I know this.
Yeah.
It's in Chicago.
What? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. We've been recording too long, evidently.
No, I was trying to confuse you. It worked. And then he fights these new Sinister Six. Radiation Man, Scorpion Guy.
Scorpion Guy. What?
Yes, the stinger pun or whatever.
Yeah, that's a snake.
Oh.
His name is Cobra.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was. Mr. Cobra and Dr. Hyde or whatever.
Cobra, just Cobra.
Cobra, and then Jekyll, Dr. Hyde Man. And then it was the Gargoyle.
Yep, Great Gargoyle.
Yep. And basically they fought Thor to a standstill, but the belt stuff, and that's right, it ends with, who was it? Was it?
It was Hyde smashes the stone.
It was Hyde, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so it seemingly seems like Thor has just died. But yeah, we'll see. I like this one. I like this one a lot. This one was very good. And
Sebastian, by the way, has still not read issue number 14, so there's just a gap in the series that he hasn't read yet.
There is a gap. It's just him versus Zeus.
Yeah, there was some
fine.
kind of important stuff that happened in that issue.
Really? Like what?
Like him, like taking on the like personality of Zeus and seeing the world, like the wheel turning, and that kind of driving him crazy, and then him having kind of to try and absorb that into him.
Yeah, I already knew that though.
Okay.
Because of number 15.
All right.
Yeah, we're fine. No, this one was very good. I like the fact that we're back on Earth again. Trying to figure out the whole Minotaur thing and Thor trying to clear his name and stuff like that. I really like the conversation that he had with Sif. I liked the action sequence between the new Sinister Four or whatever, Fantastic Four, and I enjoyed this one. I liked reading it. It was good. I'm gonna give it a 9.
Wow, I'm surprised you gave it a 9. I'm also giving it a 9. I thought you were gonna go 8.
I was about to, but then I was like, I like this one, and I give that other one an 8. I like this one more. We're going 9.
Yeah, I'm also gonna give it a 9. I think it's good. So that would lead us to Ultimate Black Panther here. This is Ultimate Black Panther number 9, written by Brian Hill. The artist is Stefano Caselli. Now, Sebastian.
Yes.
I think I might be starting to like this book, Sebastian.
Listen, I liked this one.
This was pretty cool. I don't think it's perfect, but again, as I said, I said in the last issue that I thought it was a good step in the right direction. Not perfect, but I think it was making some good moves to be a better issue, a better series. This one does continue that. And I think, honestly, what I'm seeing here is that maybe this issue is just better when it's not, or maybe this series is just better when it's just not focusing on T'Challa. Because T'Challa is not in this issue very much. This issue is mostly focused around Storm and Killmonger going to find the Sorcerer Supreme. So they go to this, like, base. It's really cool and kind of creepy. They don't explain this, but, like, all of the guards' faces are, like, weird and blurry and pixelated. Yeah. And they don't explain why, but it's just kind of cool and creepy. Like, I was super into that. So they kind of take down the initial, perimeter of guards, and they see from inside, like, all the other guards just get, like, thrown out of there, presumably by the new Sorcerer Supreme. So, that's a big chunk of the issue, is them kind of going through this facility, trying to find the Sorcerer Supreme. Then we also have another sequence where Khonshu is, like, trying to basically rally a bunch of people in Africa to kind of just overthrow Wakanda. And T'Challa is, like, kind of, he goes undercover at this thing to kind of see Khonshu, basically preaching to all of these people to just try and kind of take down Wakanda. And he gets, like, real pissed. He's, like, getting kind of berserk mode almost. And is about to just go and just kind of try and fucking throw down with Khonshu and just kill him right there. But Shuri talks him out of it. The implication, I think, is that whatever he was injected with in that knife is kind of turning him into this more, like, ferocious warrior. It's kind of seemingly, like, unlocking the Panther in him a little bit more, it seems like. It seems like it's kind of infused him with the, like, ferocity of a Panther. Because we did see it in that like, vision he had when he got stabbed initially. He turned into a Panther in that vision. I do wonder if that's kind of, like, metaphorically happening to him here. So there's that, but he ultimately does get talked down by Shuri. He does agree to just leave. And then we have Killmonger and Storm go and find the new Sorcerer Supreme. And it's some person. I don't really know who this character is. They don't say her name, but she's like, it's pretty creepy, actually. She's not Stephen Strange, that's for sure. She's, like, using this dead guy as, like, a puppet to talk to Killmonger and Storm, because, like, her mouth is kind of completely sealed, so she can't say anything, because I guess, like, her magic is very heavily based around, like, talking to people, and, like, she's able to then kind of control them, it seems. It's creepy as hell, man. Like, it's really effective, I think. I hope that we kind of see who she is in the next issue. Like, I'm hoping that we get an actual name, because I don't know. I'm checking the comments right now to see if anybody has any idea who this might be. It doesn't seem like anybody really does. So I do want to know, like, who this new sorcerer is. It could be some version of Clea, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing I'm thinking. But yeah, it's cool. I'm liking it. I like this issue a lot, actually. This is probably maybe my favorite issue of the series. I think the back and forth dialogue between Eric and Storm is really good. Like, they feel like real people here. They're, some of their little, dialogue banter back and forth. It doesn't go too far into quippiness, but it, has some still, like, fun kind of moments to it. They also are debating. We see a lot of the kind of philosophical differences between these two characters, where Eric gave T'Challa his word to help him in this Wakanda, fight. Yep. And so he's very committed to doing that. Whereas Storm is just like, Wakanda's problems are not our problems. We could just leave. So that dynamic was good and interesting, I think. I think the scene with T'Challa getting more angry, like, that's great. That's good stuff. And the new Sorcerer Supreme is interesting. So I like this issue quite a bit. It was a very solid, I think, improvement. Again, a good step in the right direction. And I'm genuinely excited to see where this series goes, which, like, 2 issues ago was not the case.
No, yeah, genuinely, I really liked this one, actually. It felt a good size. Like, I know that was always a problem of ours, that it felt way too fast previously. This one felt good. Like, it felt just perfect, honestly. Yeah. So yeah, T'Challa, something's going on with T'Challa, genuinely, because he for me was a bit too bloodthirsty in this issue.
I think it's the night. Yeah, that's the only explanation I have.
Yeah, that is the vibranium is like something's happening there, because he's got some weird new powers where he can like call vibranium, and I think that's doing something to him. And then the other side of that was the Eric and Okoye, not Okoye either.
The children now.
Eric and Ororo. Oh my god. Yeah. Yo, getting these names mixed up here.
Erica and Okoye.
Erica,
the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, and it's weird. Yeah, it could be Clea. It could be a version of Clea. It could be.
I'm seeing Agatha as a theory.
I saw Agatha. I saw Clea. I saw Cynthia Von Doom. But the only thing we do know is that they are a strange doctor.
Yep.
Got him. There it is.
That's a really good joke. Let's just take a moment of silence to appreciate that joke.
Yeah, you can't see, but I'm finger gunning right now.
Oh my god. I'll put in the video version. By the way, I definitely won't do this, but I'll put in the video version a drawing that I do myself of Sebastian finger gunning.
All right. Yeah. No, I got that from the next issue. It literally says the Strange Doctor. Yeah, their introduction was amazing. Honestly.
Yeah, it's cool.
Just that compound, and then like you said, the guards with like their fuzzy like faces or whatever, and then just the creepiness behind it as well. To the point where even like Eric was like, whoa. Like he was scared, and just the whole scene of seeing her like holding the dead guy, like absolutely disfigured dead guy by the neck, and just like it was just very good introduction to her character. And overall, yeah, I really liked this issue. So by far, has been like one of the best issues of Ultimate Black Panther that I have read, in my opinion. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I'd give this one an 8. It's almost there.
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to give this a 9. I think I'm gonna give it an 8. I feel like, I don't know. I don't think this issue is amazing. I think the fact that it's just like that it's very good is just making me think it's maybe better than it is. Just it makes me excited to actually like see a good issue from the series. So I don't really think it's a 9. So I'm gonna give it an 8, but it is close to a 9, I think, for me. All right, well, it's X-Men time, Sebastian. What do you want to do? You want to do Storm or X-Men number 5?
Let's go with Storm.
All right. This is Storm number 1, written by Murewa Ayodele, and the artist is Lucas Wernick. So this is the newest launch from the Ashes era of X-Men. It's not the first solo series of the bunch. I believe that was Wolverine, but it is one of the first solo series launches of this new era. I have been fairly, I would say, overall lukewarm on From the Ashes. I think it's getting better, but I do think like October is the month where I remember seeing a lot of the new announcements and genuinely being excited for a lot of these. I don't know, I haven't read anything else from this writer, but the plot kind of premise for this sounded interesting. And the fact that I don't know a lot about the writer is kind of actually a positive, because I have no negative feelings towards this writer. And you never know. It could lead to me like finding a new favorite comic writer or something. So like the Storm series sounds interesting. Next week we have Sentinels, which sounds interesting. And the week after that we have Mystique, which sounds pretty cool. So I think October has a lot of cool new series that are rolling out. It's just a question of if the execution will be good. And this one I think is okay. It's pretty simplistic. There's not a lot really going on here up until the very end, which I think is interesting. But mostly, this issue revolves around Storm and Frenzy going and trying to save people during a nuclear meltdown in Oklahoma City. And so Storm is kind of, neutralizing the shockwaves and everything, ultimately goes to the actual like site of the nuclear facility to find that it was caused by the activation of mutant powers for the first time. And this mutant is like, hey, kill me, Storm. I don't want to kill all these people. And Storm's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. And so essentially, like, most people think that this nuclear meltdown was caused by the fact that the nuclear facility was using alien tech to bolster it. Like tech that a lot of people would consider to be untested. But it was the mutant powers that activated the meltdown. And so Storm eventually does just tell people this. Initially, when they think it's alien tech, there's this kind of swell of positivity around mutants that is rare. It was like they're kind of like publicly their most positive time for a little like a week. And then Storm, tells them that it was a mutant's power activation that caused it, and that led to, again, everybody hating and fearing mutants again. And that's kind of the extent of the main plot of the issue. We see that Storm has radiation poisoning from the nuclear meltdown. That's going to be kind of the main plot of the next issue, is her kind of trying to fix that. And there's some stuff that's saying like, oh yeah, this was the universe's first attempt to kill Storm, but it would not be the last. And so it's kind of like setting up some, stuff that is kind of trying to take Storm off the field until it seems like eventually she will die. I think this is another one that's like kind of prophesizing the death of a character. So we have like Immortal Thor doing this. We have fucking Captain America doing this. Now we have Storm doing this. It's getting a little bit overplayed in Marvel right now. I get why, because it's like a thing to do to increase the stakes, but it just feels a little bit, maybe not forced, but it doesn't feel entirely natural. The thing I find the most interesting about this is the ending where the cosmic being Eternity is just sitting there being like, hey, Storm's pretty cool. I'm going to summon her now. And that's where the issue ends. It's unclear if he actually like summons her to see him, or if he's just kind of saying like, Storm's cool, I'm going to keep an eye out for this one. But regardless, that I think is the most interesting part of this, because Eternity's like, that's a big cosmic concept in the Marvel universe. So that's interesting to see that come into the play. The rest of it's pretty by the numbers, I think. It's fine. The art's good. I love Lucas Wernick's art. He was the artist on Immortal X-Men, which I fucking loved. So I'm very happy to see him on this series. But I don't know, the plot felt very, very standard. Some good stuff here and there, but I don't think like there wasn't enough dialogue for me to really get a handle on how this writer is handling Storm's voice. Some interesting things, but overall, I do think this was a little bit of a disappointment. It's not bad. It's totally fine. But it does, and I said this a lot in the opening salvos of From the Ashes, but it does feel like the mission statement on this series is not entirely clear to me so far. I'm sure that'll get resolved at some point. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But it has started getting resolved in the other books that I had that problem with. Regardless, though, I just think it's fine. It's an okay first issue of Storm just going around saving people, which I do like. But, the major kind of plot event of this issue being the nuclear meltdown was fine, but not amazing. So, yeah, I don't know. It's okay, I think. But it ultimately was a little bit disappointing.
Listen, right? I read the last Storm one. And, I gotta say...
Right. I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say... Okay.
This is
different
than that.
It's different, but it feels the same. Right?
Oh, wow, okay. I don't agree.
You didn't read the last one.
I've read the first, 3 issues of it. I didn't read all of it, but I did go back and read the first,
5,
3 issues.
Wasn't there?
Yeah, so I read, over half of it, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
What the hell? I just feel like her character is always the same.
See, I think that in this issue, that might be because we didn't see her do much other than just saving people.
Yeah.
So it didn't really distinguish itself as much.
She's always like this, like I understand that she wants to be, fair to everybody. As much as she's a mutant, she is still, a person that lives on Earth. So it's only fair that, being should I keep this? The conversation with Tony, basically. Should I keep this to myself, or should I let the world know that it was a mutant that actually caused this nuclear meltdown? And ultimately, she decides to tell the world that it was a mutant, and she knows what's going to happen when she does do this, It's obviously different from the other Storm solo series, where that one was more focused on her as, a leader to the X-Men. But this one, it's kind of the same in that sense, because in this one, she's trying to be a leader to the world, and what she should do in that sense, So that's where the similarities come in. Obviously, it's different because it's in a much more global scale. So it's not focused on one specific part really, and so it's different in that sense. But overall, it felt the same in a sense. I didn't mind it. I thought it was fine. I think going forward, I don't know if it could get better, get worse. Like I really don't know.
I think it could get better. I think the cosmic stuff is an interesting idea, so I'm curious about that.
Yeah, and then there's that thing. Yeah, and then so he is calling on her, right? But he hasn't actually given her anything.
No, not yet.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll see where that leads, I guess. But like overall, I think it was a solid first issue. I think just her character always feels the same for me. It's always just like her gripping with like how to lead specifically different teams. Like the first one was like her coming to terms with leading the X-Men. This one it's her coming to terms with basically being like a global leader. And obviously she has
at least,
some
at the very
experience.
least a global figurehead, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's I don't know. It feels the same but different at the same time. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where this one goes. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7.
Interesting. So okay, I'm gonna give it a 6. I think. What? It doesn't even sound like you liked it that much.
How did you like it less?
Okay, I'm gonna go in that. Here's the thing, right? I am comparing this, and this is absolutely a completely unfair comparison. I am comparing this to the last series that Storm had a major role in, which was X-Men Red, which is basically my favorite X-Men series of all time. X-Men Red is incredible. This is when she was the fucking queen of Mars, because and this is when it was terraformed by the mutants, so it was Arakko. And it was dealing with like this big fucking civil war between different factions of Arakko, and Storm was kind of leading one side of this revolution, and it was so fucking cool. It was spectacular. And this, by comparison, again, this is not a fair comparison, outside of the last page, was just so bland is the wrong word, but it was so just like toned down from the insane awesomeness that was X-Men Red. This is a very much back to basic story. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but compared to X-Men Red, it just feels much less interesting. Again, with the exception of the Eternity thing, but that's only the last page. So compared to that, I just felt kind of bored with this. Again, that's not really fair, but X-Men Red was so cool, and to be followed up by this is just not. I don't know. It was disappointing to me. And again, this is not even really a fair comparison. X-Men Red was a team book. This is a Storm solo series. Also, I didn't even realize this is marked as Legacy number 12, which means there have only been 11 other Storm solo issues in history. That's crazy. I'm shocked it's that low. But regardless, it's not a fair comparison, but it's a comparison that I'm making, and so it's just disappointing by that metric to me. So that would lead to X-Men number 5, written by Jed MacKay, with the artist being Ryan Stegman. Okay, so this series, since issue number 3, has been getting significantly better, I think. This issue, I don't think is the best issue of this series, but I do think it is starting to coalesce a lot of other things that were kind of present, although they weren't initially, they didn't initially make themselves clear as plot points that would continue to develop, but now they are. And I think it's getting better because of that. This issue deals with Psylocke and Quentin Quire going into the mind of Ben Liu, I think is his name. He's the guy that the X-Men rescued in issue number 2. Now, we did not talk about issue number 2 on the series. I did not like issue number 2. I thought it was pointless. I thought it was just like a random like rescue mission that the X-Men were doing that didn't really serve to develop any, major plot points or really anything about the series. It just felt like this random one-off adventure to establish more of the status quo from this X-Men group, while still not giving us anything interesting to hook into. This issue, I do think, retroactively makes that one better, because it does bring that stuff back into play. I still don't think that issue is great, but I do think it is elevated by the events of this issue. First of all, the art in this issue is amazing. Like, Ryan Stegman delivers some really cool, like, trippy visuals. It's psychedelic as hell. I was really into that side of it. So we see Psylocke and Quentin diving into Ben's mind, and kind of trying to find out why his powers awakened when they did. And essentially what they learn is that he was like beamed up in this like UFO kind of thing and experimented on to like force activate an X gene that he seemingly did not have, and then, you know, transform him into a mutant essentially. And so when they kind of find this out, they this is the part where the issue falls apart a little bit. They get sent into these separate like hell nightmares. So it's Psylocke sees her partner John Greycrow, who does briefly appear in this issue as well. She sees him like shooting himself, and then Quentin sees Sabretooth about to kill him. And so Quentin eventually like breaks down the walls to this nightmare thing. But they do find out that apparently Cassandra Nova was involved in all of this. And then they resurface out of Ben's mind, and they're like, hey, we know the name of their organization that's doing this now, and Cassandra Nova's involved. And that's kind of the extent of the issue. So again, I this issue I don't think is actually as good as the previous two. I think it starts off really, really, really exceptionally, and then it's a little bit worse in that kind of, again, nightmare section. But I think the Cassandra Nova appearance is really good here, actually. I am not a fan of comic Cassandra Nova, but I think she's genuinely intimidating here in a way that she often is not to me. I do wonder, there is a part of my brain that's like, well, this is just MCU synergy because Cassandra Nova was in Deadpool and Wolverine. But even so, I think she's well utilized in this issue. Again, the art's fantastic. I like also the focus that this series is doing on pairing up a couple members of the team so that it doesn't feel overstuffed. You know, it's this issue, it's just basically Psylocke and Quentin, and it, you know, dives more into each of them, and it's able to do that because there's not that many characters. Of course, like, I do want to see the X-Men all together and all working as a full team, but at the same time, I will take this over the Jed MacKay Avengers approach, which is to have them all there, but they're all just doing their own separate thing. I think this is at least a little bit better because it feels more focused on individual characters and doesn't feel as spread out across all of them. And I think, like, I like Psylocke. I don't care as much for Quentin, but he's fine in this. And then, yeah, like I said, I do think that this does slightly elevate issue number 2 because it brings back the mutant from that issue. It also does explain why the thing he manifested was an alien invasion, because the thing that like took him looked like an alien UFO. So that's fine. That's all fine. I do kind of wish part of me thinks like maybe that issue would have worked better if it had been switched with number 3, and so it had went number 3 was number 2 and number 2 was number 3. Because then I feel like number 3 is the issue that kind of started kicking more plot points into gear and making it feel more interesting and connected. So I do wonder if they had switched those 2 issues, if maybe I would have had less of a problem with it, because I did feel as it was like it was just kind of plopped in there and it didn't feel like it advanced anything, issue number 2. But regardless, like, I get that also would have posed some challenges because it would have meant that issue number 3, which would have then been issue number 2 if they had rearranged it, would have happened without a full establishment of what the new X-Men status quo was. So I get it. I think it's tricky either way. Regardless, I do think this is a solid, again, step in the right direction to making this series a better, more cohesive whole, as opposed to this like disconnected mutant rescue here, mutant rescue there. So this is, I think, a solid issue.
Yeah, I didn't mind this issue. You know, I think, you know, I like Psylocke as a character. This is my first time ever reading anything with Quentin. Like, it's my first time ever learning about him. So I don't, like, you know, he seems to be like this obnoxious, just little kid that just like seems like full of himself, I would say.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this one was fine. You know, the whole, what do I say? The mind, what was it? Mind?
The psychic rescue.
Psychic rescue or whatever. Yeah, I really don't have a lot to say on this one. I'm gonna be honest. You know, Cassandra Nova being involved. This will be my first time ever reading anything with Cassandra Nova. You know, there's some slight psychological things with Quentin and Sabretooth.
Yeah, Sabretooth cut off Quentin's head and carried it around in a box for a while. Yeah. Saw that. Yeah, Psylocke clearly has some sort of something going on with John. Either he's gonna die. He's just a soldier, and yeah, he's not gonna die, and he's not a big enough player in the series to die. So.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. I don't know.
He, by the way, was a major part of the Krakoan Hellions series, which was incredible, like fantastic series. Highly recommend that one.
But yeah, I really don't have a lot to say on this one. Besides just like, yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it. It was interesting. 8
I'm going to give this one a 7. It would be an 8 if not for the weird nightmare hallucination sequence. I think that did kind of kill the pacing a little bit. But outside of that, very solid with some amazing art. And that would lead us into the final issue of the... Jesus fucking Christ.
Final episode of the issue.
Yep, final episode of the issue. No, this will lead us into the final issue of the episode, which is also the final issue of the Absolute Power event. It is, of course, Absolute Power number 4, written by Mark Waid, with the artist being Dan Mora. So, this is, again, the last issue of Absolute Power. There's a lot that happens here. But I mentioned with issue number 3 that is the issue that I felt started to collapse under the weight of its own elements. And I was concerned as a result of that there was so much going on that this would feel either rushed or just overstuffed. And somehow, it doesn't feel like either. This is a rock-solid conclusion to this event. It is... There's still a lot happening, but I feel like they give just enough character moments and showcases to keep you from getting overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that's in this issue. Because essentially it's, the heroes are all together and they're about to launch a huge, like, fucking revolution on Waller. So they all show up at Gamora. They all kind of split up. So Dick and fucking, oh God, who else was with him? Dick and somebody else went to go straight for Waller. Bruce...
Superboy, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was. Bruce goes with Time Commander to essentially go... What they do is, Time Commander kind of, because he used his time tech to rewind failsafe to when it was active, is then able to do that with the rest of the Amazos, rewind them to kind of before they even existed, and just kind of deactivate them all that way, which then in turn repowers all of the heroes. So all the heroes get their powers back. Hal and Barry go to shut down the multiversal portal, which then closes off access to the multiverse, just period. They say kind of forever, but like it's definitely not gonna be forever, but it's for now. So, and then Waller is kind of has Dick and John on the back foot, but then Dreamer just pops up out of nowhere and is like, "What's up, fucker? I'm back from the dead." And so she takes out Waller. It turns out that she was able to survive because John kind of, for some reason, I don't understand, like, I did not know they were close, but it seems like they kind of maybe were. But so regardless, like, John was kind of dreaming about her. She was kind of instrumental in removing the rest of the Brainiac Queen's consciousness from him in that Superman John Kent one-shot. So him dreaming about her so much, because her powers are dream-based, it was able to kind of manifest her out of his dreams and back into reality. So she's back. She takes that Waller, and yeah, the rest of the heroes, they all have their powers back, and they kind of, just take everything else down. Multiverse is shut off, and then they just throw Waller in Belle Reve for the rest of her life, is what they say. Of course, she will not die there, because she's Waller. She'll be back eventually. But yeah, so Waller's in Belle Reve now, and they also made it, specifically Dreamer, shut off her memories of all the other heroes and all, like, the locations of all their, bases and all of their identities and everything. She didn't, like, erase it, but she did kind of seal it away in a corner of Waller's mind where she can no longer access it. And then the rest of the Justice League, they're like, "Hey, Ollie, we have the new Justice League Watchtower," which is where the issue ends. However, there was also the thing, God, there really was a lot that happened in this issue. We find out that Ollie apparently had, like, a psychic implant from Martian Manhunter that made him genuinely believe in Waller's cause up until a certain point when it deactivates. And then he is able to, betray her. Because he's ultimately the one who, they try to do the Amazo deactivating device, but they can't get it there in time. So then Ollie is able to, like, shoot that over, and he's the one to actually activate that. And so he was like super, super deep cover where he believed it all, but it was only because of, like, this thing that Martian Manhunter implanted. So that's kind of the full issue. Again, like, I think it's good. All the plots, all the, fronts of this attack are well balanced. It has great art by Dan Mora. I think there's some really fun, just good character moments. There's a point where Hal and Wally are talking, and it's just good, like, banter. They're talking with the rest of the heroes. It's just good banter. I think I will say I am questioning why Failsafe even needed to be in this series, because, like, he didn't really end up, playing much of a role. I get, like, the whole Time Commander plot, like, did loop into that, but you could have just not had Failsafe in it and just had done the Amazos, and I don't feel like it would have played out that differently. That's fine, though. I do think also, like, I was wondering if Waller's role would continue kind of past the, the conclusion of this event. It seems like she is kind of going to be not a huge focus for a while now. So I think it just wraps it up very neatly. I think it puts a very good cap to Dawn of DC. This initiative which I think was largely, again, very successful, as I mentioned at the start. I think Dawn of DC was good. I think, again, it was great at just building this narrative of the DC universe where events just flowed into each other very naturally. And it felt like a lot of stuff was very purposeful to the overall universe as opposed to just disconnected stuff. I think that was all really good. I think it was a very good approach to events that I hope continues into the new era. I did feel less invested in a lot of the stories as they went on, but so many of them were just very solid. Even if I didn't actively, feel super invested in them, it was just a very solid period of DC. And I think it was concluded very well by this event, which was ultimately just a very solid, solid one. So yeah, good conclusion. I liked it.
Yeah, I thought this one wrapped it up very well, actually. We were a little worried with how it was gonna be wrapped up, with how much stuff they had to do, but I think they actually did it very well. The Oliver thing they explained. I think it was simple. It was a simple thing to explain, really. It wasn't too convoluted. It was just I was just betraying you guys. It basically was essentially I was betraying you guys by being undercover, but it was a bit more in depth than that, obviously. And then the way they got their powers back also, I felt was it wasn't too oversimplified, honestly, to where it was super easy. And then what else? The way they took...
actually, now that you mentioned that, I did want to mention, not all of the powers went back to their original...
Oh, that's right.
Owner. There are some that went to other people. We didn't see that or who those people were, but that could be a very interesting thing to explore in future. I'm excited to see how that develops.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, towards the end. Yeah. And then ultimately them taking down Waller and just how they dealt with Waller afterwards as well. Because if they had just locked her up, that wouldn't have worked, obviously. But with Dreamer and her powers works, and she just basically sealed away all of Waller's blackmail into a corner of her mind to the point where she knows she has it, but she just can't remember it at all. It'd always be just on the tip of her tongue, which I feel for her is the most infuriating thing, which is the best thing they could have done. What else? And then just towards the end, the big three, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, confronting Oliver at the original Justice League's headquarters, and basically him being listen, I know the Justice League is disbanded, but I really do think we should have one. And Batman basically revealing that we are building a new Justice League. But yeah, I think this one, like you said, I think this also wrapped up the Dawn of DC very well. I think this event as a whole actually came together very well. There were a couple of tie-ins that I didn't really like that much. Mainly the biggest one that I can remember that I really just did not care for was the last the number 7 one. Suicide. Is it Suicide
Task Force 7.
Task Force 7, number 7. That one, the one with the Global Guardian. That one was rough for me. But the rest of them, I didn't find that too hard to read or anything like that. There were a couple that I obviously I didn't really enjoy as much as the others. But overall, as a event, I think this one was pretty good. And so I think they did a great job of just the way they ended it all. And so, I'm going to give this one an 8.
I think I'm also going to give it an 8. We do have to, of course, though, ask the question, Sebastian, is this better or worse than Night Terrors?
This is always, honestly, the toughest question for me.
I think it is for this event. This is the first one where I think it's genuinely, I'm very clearly, I know that I think this is better than Night Terrors.
Because you gotta look at it, man.
I think ultimately, I think the core series of this was better than the core series of Night Terrors.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Tie-ins overall were way more consistent.
Yeah. And this one felt like it had more of a deeper meaning overall too.
Yeah, this felt more consequential. Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, it's usually it's usually a hard decision. But for this one, I think they just did a good job of building up to this event, and then the way they concluded the event to the point where it felt satisfying and not rushed, like a lot of sometimes how events end up being. Sometimes events aren't built up, but this one was built up over a long time, and you can see it all happening. And so I think they just did a very good job of how this all panned out overall as an event. So yes, I would say this one is better than Night Terrors. in the end, ultimately.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's a point kind of bouncing off what you said. Like, Night Terrors just kind of came and went. Again, it just kind of just feel like it was plopped into the middle of the DC universe. Whereas this one, yeah, it was so naturally built up to all of the tie-ins, with some few exceptions, felt consequential in how they were, broadening the scope and the world of this event. I think it just felt very natural the whole way it was going. It felt like really just big. It didn't feel, Night Terrors felt like, it was kind of a big deal, but it didn't feel as big as this. Like, this felt like a real huge deal for all of the heroes in that universe, like a major, major thing. And I think this also does set up some cool stuff, going forward. More so, I guess, to be fair, like, it's more the all-in special that sets up some more stuff. But I kind of, and this is not really fair, like, and this would also, by the way, this I would still say this is better without all-in. But All In kind of does feel to me like Absolute Power, issue number 4, part 2, like kind of the epilogue to that, that then kind of spins the DC universe into that new direction. Again, like, even without that, this would still be better, I think. But with that, it does even provide even this broader direction and building up to stuff that will be coming down the line. Whereas Night Terrors, it was just like, hey, Dr. Hate is here. And that was kind of the only thing that set up. So definitely better for me, I think, as well. Just, very solid event. Probably the best event that I think we've read, actually.
That we reviewed here,
Yeah. Okay, well, that would wrap up this episode of the podcast. Thank you, as always, everybody, for watching or listening on whatever platform you may be on. Next week, definitely still some decent stuff. Absolutely, it's a pretty stacked week. Actually, we've got stuff like the first issue of this new Absolute Universe with Absolute Batman, issue number 1. It's written by Scott Snyder, who's like a huge force in the Batman writers sphere. He is the co-creator of the Court of Owls. Like, he's done a lot of really good Batman stuff, so I am interested to see how this goes. I will also be jumping back on with Batman and Robin number 14, which is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. It's a new creative team, start of a new run of this series. It is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson again, who also wrote Green Lantern War Journal, and I'm interested to see him take on a more grounded kind of series. I think this could be very good. I'm excited for this. The next Blade miniseries starts this week. It's Blade Red Band. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm hoping this will be good. It is. I wish they just do a full-on ongoing. But it's written by the writer of Ultimate Black Panther and the previous Blade run. I'm mixed on this writer, but I do think this could be cool. I am excited for this. We got Exceptional X-Men number 2. That first issue was fine. I'm not that excited for this one. Next issue of Geiger, which it's more Geiger. It's fine. Next issue. We have the next kind of chapter in the Green Lantern saga at DC right now, which is Green Lantern Civil Core Special. This is written by both Jeremy Adams and Philip Kennedy Johnson. It's bringing John Stewart in the main Green Lantern series. And so we'll see how this kind of goes. It seems like it's going to kind of be building up to the war between some of the Lanterns against the United Planets and the rest of their Lanterns. Next issue of Minor Arcana. Cool little debut issue from Jeff Lemire. I am interested to see where this goes. I didn't love that first issue, but it was pretty solid with a very cool ending. Next issue of Phoenix. This series is fine. I mean, Gore's in this one, I guess, so that's something, but whatever. The final issue of Scarlet. That could be cool. Cobra Commander's apparently kind of going to be a big deal in this one, so I'm excited to see how that goes. Again, Sentinels, I mentioned that earlier, but it's about this, new team. I think they're kind of mutant hunters. This one sounds interesting. It's a miniseries. I don't love the writer, but I think this could still be pretty solid. It's a cool concept, and the writer is not bad. Transformers, great series. I have nothing to say about that really besides that. This is going to be going over what's happening to the Starscream right now, so that's cool. Next issue of the Ultimates, where apparently we're going to be meeting Ultimate Hawkeye. Again, very solid series. I'm excited for this. And then the next issue of X-Force, co-starring Man-Thing. Again, it's our one Man-Thing appearance a year, so I'm excited for this because I'm a big Man-Thing fan. But the series is not that great. Anything on your end that you would like to shout out?
Terminator.
All right. Well, as always, that will wrap it up for this issue. Thank you, as always, for everybody for watching or listening. Once again, if you're on YouTube, you can, of course, leave the video a like if you enjoyed it. You can also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of our videos. And you can also hit the bell notification if you'd like to be notified when we post new episodes of this podcast. You can also, of course, leave us a comment letting us know which some of your favorite comics have been recently. And if we're not reading anything that we should be reading, you can also get in contact with us at our email address. That is earthsmightiestcomicspod@gmail.com. That is all one word. And of course, if you're on Spotify, you can also follow the show over there so that you do not miss any episodes on Spotify as well. So yeah, once again, thank you everybody for watching or listening. We appreciate it, and we will see you in the next episode.